Hey sisters, my name is Sarah Moore if you don't know me, and am just popping on here to share a little bit of encouragement or perhaps a challenge, more so than encouragement, but I hope it does encourage as well. Something that the Lord has been working on in my heart this past month is the topic that I want to bring up with you, and surprisingly or interestingly enough, it's also come up this past month at a weekly Bible study I attend and a monthly women's group that I'm a part of. I'm going to try and be brief, which for those who do know me, know that is hard, but I'm going to try. So the topic that I want to discuss is what Jesus meant and how to practically apply the passage where Jesus talks about not storing up for ourselves treasures here on earth. And the teaching comes out of Matthew 6, so I'm just going to read that, okay? Matthew 6, verse 19 through 21. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, or other interpretations or other translations say, do not collect up for yourselves treasures on earth. And I like that because us women are collectors, am I right? So, do not collect up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, or collect up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, nor thieves steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That was harder to say than it should have been. So the point, or I think what the Lord has been teaching me over the last month especially, is just the things that I hold a little too dear, the treasures that I do have on this earth, and kind of working through that, and then practically how to kind of rid that habit of mine, and to redirect those treasures to heaven. And so, quick story. I think, well, let me go back a little bit. I think with everything that's happened, right, the Lord was already working on this in my heart, but then when everything kind of changed, like super fast, and all of a sudden these things that the life that I've known is changed. I was shown ways that I hold things dear. I was kind of mourning the life that as we know it. I was mourning, not being able to go on date nights or to the movies or take the girls to Disneyland or go on a Target run. There's a lot of things that changed all at once, and a part of me was just arms open to the Lord, like, you have our life, you have everything, like it's all in your hands. But then behind my back, I felt like I was grasping onto this life that I don't want to change. I don't want taken from me. And I think the Lord had to show me that I was really grasping on too tightly to the things of this world. And it was something I needed, like a crazy occurrence, like a pandemic, to show me. Hold on. My babies are starting to stir. Fell back asleep. And so that, with all that's happened the last few weeks, I've had to let go. And I think I'm only doing that by praying that the Lord allows me to be okay with letting go, just okay to give it to Him. And to go along with that, another way the Lord has been driving this home for me is, these are all kind of small things, like Job was shown very drastically, the things he held dear and that were taken from him. And he passed the test, at first at least. But anyways, going back, these are small things, but clearly showing me that I'm storing up treasures here on earth. So a few days ago, my daughter Ivy, she's almost 2, was able to pull out one of the drawers from my china hutch. And that drawer just happened to be my teacup drawer. And for many of you who know me, you know that I have a teacup collection. Speaking of not collecting things up for yourselves, but I love to, that collection was special to me. Many of those teacups were my mom's, who's since passed away. And yeah, I mean, I love to use them. I love to share them with others, but they are like a treasure of mine. And she pulled that drawer down and it crashed on the floor, and 3 very special cups were broken. And I just collapsed like in tears. Like I was there on the floor, like crying around my broken teacups. And Ivy was startled at the drawer falling and a loud noise and broken glass. But then also seeing her mom like responding so emotionally, and she was kind of trying to like comfort me, but also like I could see that she was like, she was kind of apologizing, and she knew that she'd done something wrong. But I was just kind of like taking a moment to just grieve over these things. And so, short while after, everything was cleaned up, and I was just kind of talking with Ivy about it and holding her, and the Lord just kind of revealed to me in that moment that I had held too tightly to those teacups, to those things. Those things were a little bit too dear to me, because I had allowed myself to grieve over them instead of comforting and paying attention to my daughter, who is an eternal soul. That teacup is not eternal. That teacup is just a thing. But my daughter has been entrusted to me and is an eternal being, an eternal soul, and I needed to focus on that. And that is my way. I've been commanded to parent her and love her and care for her and to steward her life. And I was not in that moment being a very good steward of her, who needed comfort. I needed to know why mommy was upset. And so I think the Lord was just showing me again how I was allowing some things to just be a little bit too dear, and that I allow some things to become treasures of mine. And so in our Young Wives Club that we meets every month, we're talking about this subject of Jesus's commands to not store up treasures. And then in Luke 14, he talks about the cost of discipleship, and so we read that together, and then and I'll share a little more from there. It's Luke chapter 14, verse 25 and on. Now great crowds accompanied Jesus, and he turned and said to them, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own mother and father and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who will see it will begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he's able to, with 10,000, to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple." And so basically in those series of verses, Jesus is saying, like, if you want to follow me, it's going to cost you. And I want you to be really careful and consider what it means to be my disciple. And I don't know that we in the American church really do that, if we do carefully consider the cost. But this verse has challenged me. This passage of verses has really challenged me that we are called to carefully consider the cost. And if we are willing to bear the cost, pay it, then follow Jesus wholeheartedly. And in this case, what he's asking us to do is not have collections of treasures on earth, but instead, at the end of it, in verse 33, he says, "So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple." That's huge. It sounds like Jesus just wants us to give away all our stuff, right? And in different discussions and Bible studies and stuff, when we've been talking about this, it's not wrong to own a home, but it means that it means more than you just being willing to give up all your stuff. It means you give it to the Lord. I think having your house be a house of hospitality, seeing everything you own, everything you have as tools to share the gospel. The parable of the talents that Jesus talked about, where the master gave the servant talents, and one invested it and one buried it. Anyways, the one that buried it, he did nothing with what the master gave him. And so the master told him to give it to the person who had actually done something with it. Give it to the one who had invested. And I think that is a challenge to us as well, that the Lord has given us so much, so many tools, so many amazing things that we need to be willing to give away and give up and invest in people so that we can have a great return, meaning we can share the gospel and hopefully bring people into the family of God. And hopefully one day then the master, our God, will be able to say, "Hey, I gave you this and you invested it in people and you did a good job." It came back. I don't want him to say, "Hey, I gave you all of these things and you just sat on it, you enjoyed it, you did all, you did fine, you had a fine life, but you didn't use it for what was eternal, and that's people." And so this is just something that's been challenging me. And in our Young Wives Club, one of the girls asked, what does this practically look like? And real quickly, I'll share with you that a friend of mine years ago, she went to lunch with my mom. Actually, they were good friends. My friend is a little bit younger than I am, but they went to lunch, and my friend had a necklace on, and the cashier at the fast food restaurant commented on the necklace and said that it was lovely. And my friend immediately, without even hesitation, removed the necklace and gave it to her and said, "You can have it." And the cashier was shocked, of course, and tried to, deny the gift. Told her that she couldn't take that from her. And my friend just said, "No, you like it, you can have it." And then from there, they had they were able to have a little bit of a spiritual conversation in the fast food line, and that was it. My friend, that necklace meant nothing. It was nothing, but it gave her an opportunity to share the gospel with someone. And I think that is exactly the kind of application to these verses. Is everything we have is Jesus. Everything belongs to him. And if we really truly see our things this way, then it doesn't hurt so much to give it up. And it doesn't hurt it doesn't hurt quite as much when it breaks into a million pieces. Teacups are not eternal. Necklaces are not eternal. People are eternal. And I think in this time, we are having an opportunity to even see more so how much we hold dear. If you're like me, you've been able to see how much of this life is very special to you, is very treasured by you. And I've been able to see that. The Lord has been able to reveal that to me. And I've been able to just confess it to the Lord, ask for forgiveness, and then try and change. And I think that's really the point of this, is that this is a challenge, a time of challenge, that we have so much. We've been given so much. And we have the opportunity to use our things to bless those around us and to use what we have for the sake of the gospel and for sharing and saving the lost. And so, anyways, I know that this might not be super encouraging necessarily, but I think that a lot of you can probably relate with me in realizing things that you've held dear, whether it's the life we know that's right now in such a time of change, whether it's things we own or our 401ks, whatever it is, like practical life, like we need to kind of, deal with some things, but at the end of the day, none of this stuff, none of it is eternal. The only thing that matters are people. And the Lord has just been really teaching me, showing me the things that I hold a little bit too tightly. And so let's challenge each other and encourage each other and motivate each other to hold lightly the things of the world so that it doesn't hurt so bad when it's taken away, and so that someday when we've given it away for the sake of the gospel, the Lord will be able to say that we invested it well. Love you, sisters.